Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learning. I'm delighted and honoured to be joined by Andrew Bell. Andrew is the chairman of Ray White Surfers Paradise Group. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
I'm exceptionally well, thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity to have a bit of interaction between our two countries.
Fantastic, thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into property and ending up being chairman of Ray White.
Well, that is quite a long story, but I'll abbreviate it as much as I can. Left school with no particular skill and with no particular ambition, and I had no idea what my career was going to be, but I had a cousin that was in real estate, and over at Christmas, he explained what he did on a daily basis, and I said, that sounds good. I don't have to be in an office. I get a car and you're out and about looking at property. So that was about the limit of my sort of desire and passion to get in the industry. But at the time, there was a recession on, and I kept trying to get positions, and because everyone was putting people off, and it just drove this determination to get a job. And I was fortunate to get one with a gentleman who was fairly prominent in the real estate industry and took me under his wing. I spent 9.5 years with him, starting in property management, working my way through to sales manager, office manager, and then it was time for me to spread my wings. He was not prepared for any sort of partnership and so on. Moving on, he was fairly elderly at that stage. So I opened my own office. It was a one-man show. Then my brother Greg joined me, and it was 2. And then we got a secretary, it was 3. And then we got a property manager, it was 4. And away she went. So I spent 10 years in Sydney, built up 3 offices in the eastern suburbs of Sydney before an opportunity was presented to me to move to Queensland, to the Gold Coast, which is where I live now. And that was 35 years ago. And again, fantastic timing. I bought just at the beginning of a major downturn in the economy, and it was struggle street for quite a number of years. But over the years, we've built from a staff of 16. We peaked at 320 some years ago, and we expanded to have offices in Atlanta, USA, Guangzhou, China, numerous residential offices through here, commercial, project marketing, property management, Ray White Marine selling boats, and Ray White Hotel selling pubs. It all got a little bit too much, so it was time over the last 5 or 6 years to start scaling down a bit, and I find myself now sort of knocking on the door of a bit of succession planning.
Okay, well, okay, loads to unpack. So thank you for sharing all of that. So if we go back to the beginning. Okay, what lessons did you learn from going into property management?
Oh, I feel very blessed that I got that opportunity. I believe I learned a lot about property itself, everything from block sewers to electrical systems to roofing, and you name it. I learned the actual ins and outs of property. At a young age, I was able to learn the ability to deal with people and tricky situations, landlords and tenants. And so it was a good entry point. I looked fairly young at that when I was just left school, and I don't think I would have made it in sales. And so it was a sensible starting point for me. And I did that for about 6 years before starting to do some sales, and before I started then moving off to do my own thing.
Okay, so sales-wise. So going into sales, what were the lessons that you learned from there?
Well, I was fortunate that the gentleman I worked for was very big in auctions, which in Australia is our preferred method of sale. And so I was under the wing of someone who taught me that process, which is a very efficient way of bringing properties to correct market price quickly, and by allowing for competition to generate premium prices. And so it helped any agent who was proficient at auctions was able to stand out as the guy who was getting the best sale price, the guy who could turn stock over fairly quickly. And that I had an immediate love for it and have had ever since. And it's actually been the foundation of my entire career. was to be a leader in the field of auctioning.
Okay. So one of the things that I love what you said is about process, and it's all about putting the right processes in place. So if I'm a new agent and I'm starting today, what advice would you give me about building my processes?
Well, these days it's all about establishing a client base. And so the days of, as we used to, in my early days, is you have a real estate office in a prominent location on a corner position, a busy shopping centre, and you waited for business to come to you. You promoted yourself in certain ways to make yourself stand out, but you waited business to come to you. Today, of course, it's changed dramatically. Now it's about having a database of clients and about building relationships with them so that when their time comes to sell, you're their trusted advisor, you're the person they turn to. So it's a little bit of technical, but it's having the disciplines to build those relationships on a daily basis. We know we've got about 18 to 20 contacts with people a year, a whole range of different touch points to build those relationships. So the key word I have now for our industry is about being a trusted advisor, and building a relationship. You don't even need that many clients. You get yourself 1,500 odd clients, and generally the turnover out of that gives you a great living. If you want to be a superstar, of course, you can grow on top of that. But it's quite a simple process when you understand it and you have the common sense and the discipline to follow it.
Okay, so you mentioned two words there, or quite a few: discipline, building relationships, and trusted advisor. And you mentioned touch points. So one of the things we can certainly improve on in the UK is touch points, because most of our previous sellers or previous buyers end up in witness protection and never get spoken to again. Our buyers, I think one of my biggest takeaways at ARIC recently was this Client for Life program for buyers as well. So even though a buyer may not buy through you, if you give them this exceptional customer experience, they're going to recommend you to friends, family, colleagues, or neighbours. So what sort of touch points do you have in order to make sure that happens at the Ray White Group?
So in a simple way, the first thing is, of course, just to simply give them a call once a quarter. We're very big with all of our record taking, so we know the nature of the conversation you'd have, very abbreviated notes, so you can reconnect 3 months later with a phone call. If there was something happening in their area, another phone call. It might be, I thought you'd be thrilled to know we've just got a property up the road from you that we've listed, comes up for auction in the next month. Love you to come along and have a look. When you've sold a property, I'm sure you want to know that number 6, Smith Street up the road, just sold. Lovely neighbours, tell the whole story. Anything that might be happening in the market, interest rates have just gone up or come down or whatever, have a bit of a chat about how that might be affecting the market. There's a whole scope of reasons to ring, and it's never to ask them for something. It's never to ask, would you like to sell? It's all about giving them information, keeping them abreast of the market. So the only risk I ever see in our office is we might ring too often. We might contact them too often. But that if you're giving something away, if you're actually got a relationship, then they don't mind the phone call. It doesn't have to be long, can be reasonably brief. We also send out things like text messages, of course, just letting them know about things that might be on. We'll do some video messages, which we text out and so on. So, a cross-section of activities, variety, but always about information, always about keeping you abreast of the market, things that might affect you and your property's value.
So I recently read actually that Ray White Group had a massive day of creating business relationships. I call it prospecting. So I don't know if you're involved in that day. And I saw that you gave over $32,000 back to your community. So can you explain what that was all about? Because I thought that was incredible what you did.
Well, we tried to train our team to always be making their calls on a daily basis. We're very blessed with the Ray White Group that they've invested millions into technology to provide the most up-to-date systems. And there's a lot of, I've heard, a lot of intellectual property now that's unique to Ray White. A lot of AI in there now that can tell us a probable vendor coming up based on certain activities they're doing and so on. So just to top that off, we regularly have these days where we get the whole organisation around the entire country to focus in on this call session. It might be 5 hours, and there's competition around the country for who can make the most contacts. It's not just making a call, but it's actually speaking to someone. And then part of that is some fundraising activities that we do amongst the team so that we can do something, give something back to charity. It's just to make fun, to do something that's a bit of a uniting process for the team, but it's also to have a bit of fun on the day.
Brilliant, thank you. So bringing it right back, setting up your own business. So how did you find that?
Sorry, I was just back from a month in Europe. Got myself a little tickle in the throat. What was the question?
Okay, so coming back to when you first started and you set up your own business and you built it from, got up to 16 and then up to 320 people. What were your challenges when you started setting up your own business?
Two significant challenges. One was my lack of skill to run a sizable business, to the actual mechanism of running a business, the acumen to, I felt I was a reasonably good leader, but there is so much more to a business than that. And so I was light on in that space, and I was light on in cash. And I think it's the main problem for most businesses, they're undercapitalised. So they were two handicaps, and I went for some years before I actually had the wisdom, I guess, to actually bring in some business coaches. And they were the real trigger for our business to grow. Some really simple business concepts that I'd never considered, and systems and processes and so on, and encouraged me to put more senior people into the business in certain roles, like in HR and full-time accountant and the likes. And those terrified me before I had the business coaches, thinking that's just another expense. But they helped me see there was an investment, and of course, their business just took off from that point on. So those two would be my biggest handicaps.
Okay, so recruitment and building a culture. So starting from nothing, how did you build a culture into your business?
The first thing was get rid of all the people that shouldn't have been here. When I first purchased this business, Ray White Service, there was actually 42 people, but after I interviewed them all, I only ended up with 16. I felt the others had to take their career elsewhere because I just didn't think they were our culture. And then it was important to tell them what it is that I envisaged the office to become and how we would do that and how they played a part in that. Because it was important that I got buy-in. It was important that we were working on the same page and we're going in the same direction. So that's why I trimmed right back to that team, so as to get the right people. And then from that point on, it was continue to add people. I've never thought in terms of trying desperately to find skillful agents. What I look for is people with the right attitude. I can teach people skills, that's not overly difficult, but it's very difficult to get people into the right headspace if they're not. I mean, it's not impossible. So I always kept looking for like-minded people, people who I felt really wanted to go places. Back in those days, and I'm talking about 35 years ago, people were very, very, I'd call them lazy by today's standards, and it was a very casual approach. Well, I wasn't. I was driven. I needed to go places fast, and I wanted people that wanted to go with me on that journey. So that's who I look for.
Okay, thank you. So where did that drive come from?
Good question. I would never, if there was a vote in my class when I was leaving school or the person most likely to succeed, that wouldn't have been me. But I guess it was two things. One, this kind of, when I initially was left school and I was trying to get this job, these knockbacks really riled me because everyone was looking for some experience. We're putting people off, not putting them on. And I just got this determination. But I've been blessed along the way to have had some wonderful mentors. And each of them in their own way have inspired me with little thoughts. And collectively, it's created the person I am today, and I'm eternally grateful to all of those people. And now, of course, it's an internalised thing. It's, as I move in the twilight stages of my career, I still have it. People go, "What? Don't you want to retire?" And I go, "Could not think of anything worse." I have so much more I still want to do. I have so much ambition. And much of that is also giving back to my community and to the industry. But I just have this inbuilt part of me that I want to keep growing as a human being. It's relentless. I just never want to pause.
I love that. So I love what you've just said. Keep growing as a human being. I think that's brilliant. Just want to touch on your mentors and business coaches. You've mentioned that 2 or 3 times now. Why do you think it's so important to have a mentor or a business coach?
Well, I doubt that anyone was born with all the knowledge. So where do you gather the knowledge from? Yes, textbooks and courses and so on. But life's lessons are more from human beings than they are from a textbook and the like. And I know today we've got the benefit of being able to, follow blogs and podcasts and so many ways to gather more information. But there's nothing like sitting down face to face with someone and sort of bouncing your problems. The most defining one of all was a gentleman who I'd probably say was my second mentor. And he asked me, I was reasonably young, I was probably 30-ish, and he asked me who was Andrew Bell. And I said, well, I'm Andrew Bell. He said, yeah, but who are you? And I struggled to answer it. So I said to him, well, who's Bob Pennington, which was his name? Who's Bob Pennington? And he went on to say Bob Pennington's a such and such year old gentleman. He's the son of Carol and Dave or whatever it was. And then he went on, he said he's a great, great son to his parents. He's a great brother to his sister and his brother. He's a very active person in his church community. And he went on with this broad base of who he was and what all the things he did in life. And I went, God, Andrew Bell's no one. I just go to work every day. I'm on my personal pursuit for a career and making money. And then I just went, no, that's not who I want to be. I want to be more than that. No. And so I went off and I did a personal development course focusing on that aspect of life. And so it transformed me significantly. That I just want to be a person that when I'm taking my last breath, I go, I gave it everything. And I left a footprint on this planet. I'd like to think that in one way or another, I left those that have had contact with me in a slightly better position because they've met me than before they did. And so, I do a lot with all our young people in the office here, and I do a lot in the community. I do a lot of mentoring for people and so on, because I think what a waste for me to have accumulated all this experience and all this knowledge over all these years and then just take it with me to the grave. So that is part of my onward growth, is to go, how can I share this with more people?
Thank you. So coming back to community, what are you doing with your community?
Well, it's a very broad base. We have two major events a year. One is a black tie ball, which we've been raising money for muscular dystrophy for 20 odd years, and we've raised over $5 million from our balls over the years. The other is our community is based on a beach, and it's one of probably the most famous beaches in the world, called Surfers Paradise. And it's a dangerous beach because it's open, so there's lots of rips. And we are flooded with tourists from all over the world who can't swim. So people can't swim on a dangerous beach. So we've been supporting that club with a whole lot of safety equipment. We've raised about 1.3 million for the beach equipment to keep that safe. And then we do a host of things, careers nights, and I'm a charity auctioneer, and every charity event that's on, we're there and we're supporting that. Anything that gives back to our community in any shape or form. Tourism, I speak at business events. There's just no limit to what I would do to try and make my community, the city that I live in, a better city.
Okay. Love all of that. Can I come back to hiring on attitude, please?
Yeah.
So what are the sort of questions that you're asking to see whether somebody's got an exceptional attitude?
Well, I talk a lot about their past, their history. I want to know some of that background stuff, the type of schools they went to, the challenges they had, what they've been doing up to now, what they've done to give back to the community. Much of it comes out in a conversation. I'll find out whether it's a kid who was working at McDonald's when they were 14 and so on, and they made it up to the shift team leader or whatever, whether they're captain of the football team, whether they did things like debating and so on. I'm looking for somebody who's just that little bit above and beyond, but I sometimes just go with a hunch. And I really look at a CV. In the moment, we've just put on 4 new young guys who are all sort of 18 to 20, who you wouldn't say they had any star qualities from what they've been doing to now. But my gut feeling is they just have this passion, this absolute desire. And so far, it's been a couple of weeks now. I mean, they're last to leave, first in the office. They're doing everything right. But, you get them wrong along the way as well. But it's definitely my conversations with them. I'll ask them to come in at an odd time. It won't be working hours. I might say, can you make it on Sunday morning at 10? And if it's like, oh, well, I go, no, that's not so good. But if they go, yep, I'll be here. It's just those little subtle tests that I'll put to see whether they're prepared to go that extra mile.
Okay. You also mentioned the word disciplined, and obviously you need to be disciplined in the amount of calls that you make. And in ARIC, I think every speaker mentioned discipline and consistency were the 2 favourite words. What activities do you think agents need to be disciplined in on a daily basis?
So my 2 words are structure and discipline. So you need to design your day. And I do that for myself, but I work with my salespeople to know everything from what time am I going to wake up, what exercise am I going to do, when am I going to plan my daily diary? Is it the night before or the day, that morning? To know where I'm going to be at what time and what are the things I need to do to be successful. So some basic things are all my contact calls to those in my database, and or build my database further. What script am I going to use? You want to change that. The script might change because some circumstances that have occurred, maybe some announcement by government and so on, that might have a bit of impact on the industry and so on. So get your place right. All right, I'm calling from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. 11 a.m. I'm doing this. So knowing all the activities. Now, the basic ones for me is, apart from building those relationships, we have a job to do with any property. Find buyers. So I put that under marketing. So I have to do a percentage of marketing a day and get sellers where they need to be to get the property sold. I've never yet really met a seller that didn't want more than the property's worth. You get the odd one. And every buyer wants to buy cheaper. So I know my job is to work on both those parties to get a meeting of the minds. And so that's something I need to work on a daily basis. We use the auction process to do that. Some very simple steps that we follow on a daily basis to have the property ready on auction day to be sold at the right price. So that's the structure, to know what I'm doing right throughout every day of every week, including family time, community time, church time, whatever your interests are. And then the hardest thing of all is the discipline, because particularly in our industry, things will pop up and you suddenly get a phone call, can you come and see me, and so on. And in relation to making the calls and the relationship building, it can become monotonous if you haven't got the right thinking. So it's so easy to go, oh, well, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow, I'll do it the next day. So the strength to have the commitment to go, I'm just not going home till I've done this. And so I know for me personally, it's what's made, well, I'm not going to call it myself, it's contributed to whatever success I have enjoyed. It's because I just don't get carried away with all the fun stuff, and I'm quite happy, content, and understand the grind, and I embrace the grind because I know it's the steps to success.
Okay. So for me, implementation is really important and accountability is really important to make sure people action it. What do you do to get people to make sure, you're giving them all these great tools that they actually take action?
Well, it comes back to employing the right people. So we do that, but we're all human. So we all go off track, and we all have family problems and health problems and God knows what. So it's very easy to go off track. So that's where, if you talk about our culture, my culture of this business is to support people. I'll support them to a point. If they won't respond and don't help themselves, then, that's a waste of time for me. But I was one of our guys today I had a one-on-one with, and I said to him, we're reaching a point where I have to make a decision. I said, you are not doing all the things that you should be doing to be successful. So I said, I just can't see, a future for us if things don't change. Now I said, it doesn't change my world, and I'm doing this for you. I'm sharing this with you because I want you to be successful. But if you don't want it as much as I want it for you, then let's not do it. Real estate's too hard to do if you're not prepared to be passionate and do all the things you need to do. And he said, I've tried to explain to my wife that you are very hard on me. He's Sri Lankan, I think. He said, you're hard on me, but he said, you are hard because you care. And I said, absolutely. And I said, I call a spade, and if you won't respond, then I'll let you know the name of the principal up the road and you go and see him. Because I don't want an office of excuse-making people. I want people who are committed.
Thank you. One of the things in the UK that we have is low fees, and there's a race to the bottom. What are you doing to keep your fee levels up?
I'll tell you my kind of theory on this, but it keeps coming back to the right people. So this is my belief. Here in Australia, the scale will go anywhere from 1.5% for the bottom feeders to early 3% for the higher end. Now, if you've done a great job building your relationships and you get called in unopposed, if you go in with your appointment to act form and you've got 3% written on that form, I reckon there's about 30% of people just go, okay. I reckon there's about 40% of people who might go, oh, gee, that's a bit high, isn't it? And, they want to kind of a bit argue with you on it, or maybe just challenge you on it. But if you are strong and you can justify your fees and show them the things you do and the results you get, which have got to be good, then most of them will go, okay, all right, fine, you know. And then there's the balance of probably people who go, I don't care, I just don't pay top price. So if you don't do it for 2%, you're just not going to get it. And you just got to make the decision, I'll take that business or I won't. But what happens for most agents is they go in on the theory that I'm up against the bloke who's the cheapest in town, so I better match it from the beginning. So they'll go in at 1.5% or 2% and don't even try for the highest amount. So we're now averaging about 2.76% commission. And that's up from, we used to be a regulated scale and it used to be maximum of 2.5, but the industry was around 2%. Well, our industry is still floating around high ones into early twos, and we're 2.76. But I've had to teach the belief in our guys. I've had to teach them that you've actually got to earn it. You know, you've got to prove that I'm good enough. I'm better than the bloke up the road. You know, but you want to save 0.5%, but it could cost you $50,000 in lower sales price. And by and large, we've been successful.
That's fantastic. I mean, to me, I want a skilled negotiator who's going to get every last single penny. You know, so it's what's more important is somebody who's going to put more money in my pocket rather than a cheap fee. How do you teach negotiating skills?
That's a hard one. That is a hard one. I've always believed that if you're good in our industry, you should automatically get a psychology degree, because that's really what we do. We deal with human emotions. And the more that you understand that, the more you understand humans, the better you are at negotiation. I mean, you put all sellers under a sort of a category of sellers and buyers under buyer, and they come from two completely different, you know, perspectives. But even under that, under the sellers, there's a huge diversity of people. I personally break people into three categories. First category is I have to sell. You know, divorce, bank spring down my neck, moved elsewhere, bought something else, time's the essence. How I negotiate with that seller is different to the next category, which is, we'll sell it, we get our price. They're a different category. And the third category, I call them the lottery winners. You know, if their place is worth $1 million, they want 2. Well, I just don't deal with those people, so I work on the others. But I understand I've got to find out the reason why someone would want to reduce their price. So when I can get to understand that, then I can work with those parties in an effective way to get price down. Likewise with buyers, there'll be reasons why, you know, they're buying, why this property is the one of some significance. Usually there's less need to buy that one because, well, if I only get that one, I'll get another one, I'll get another one. But it is about understanding people. It's about winning the hearts and minds of those people and then understanding I've got to present whatever I'm putting to them in a way that they feel like they're a winner. And if I can make everyone feel like a winner, there's every chance we'll do a deal. And I try to diffuse that situation where there's an impasse, because what really has been said is, I'm not going to let them win. You know, I'm not dropping another dollar, or I'm not paying another dollar, and it becomes a bit personal. And I'm always trying to unwind that and make everyone feel like they're a winner, even though they have to give.
Okay, thank you. So I'm very conscious of time, and I know we've run over, so thank you very much for giving me your time. If I could ask one final question, and it's, if you could tell me one thing, what would it be? So what one bit of advice would you give for people watching or listening this?
Oh, one's a tough one. One piece of advice. Do it for the right reason. Do it for the right reason. If it's money, that'll smell. They'll smell it. If it's for the ego, no one likes you. You know, if you do it for the right reason, if you're a giver rather than a taker, you'll attract so many people to you. Sincerity, but do it for the right reason.
Fantastic. Andrew, if people want to get hold of you, how do they do that, please?
Oh, the email address is a.bell@rwsp.net. That's the easiest.
Fantastic. Well, look, incredibly grateful for your time. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your years of wisdom. There's some great advice in there. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. And I look forward to being on the next one with you very soon. Thank you.
Happiness to all.